Bugs. Adventure is adventure, my dear sister. Princess Celestia beat against aching legs to take her quicker and faster along the barely paved path of dirt and grass and gravel, mindful of the branches sprouting out from the ground. The passing trees blurred in phases of brown, light and dark, greens of the leaves and foliage, their contrast the same. Though it was foolish to do so. The princess glanced over her shoulder, seeing her sister, smaller but stronger, only a few hooves away. Much like her, Luna was dashing for her life, and due to the difference of height between them, pushing herself harder to keep up. Celestia wished something could be done about that. But for the moment, getting out alive, somehow, was the only priority.
Sister, seize!
Luna's voice called out from behind, echoing all around. The words foolish, but the mare wasn't. Despite feeling like a bad idea, Celestia dug her hooves into the earth, slowing her speed, and she spread the ground apart with her momentum, finding herself lagging into the middle of a kind of opening.
Do not move! They've surrounded us!
Celestia came to a pause where she stood. The echoes of a call boomed from some distant bird. The hissing of snakes matched the sizzle of the sun, not viewable underneath the dense foliage above, and inside, the jungle was dim. Something brushed against her hind leg. Celestia gazed down at her sister, who was looking away, pointing a hoof in the same direction. She looked. There was, well, sloped walls of shadows marking the distance, eyes glowing green, sparkling in masses. Celestia swallowed. The opening of eyes and the unleashing of light spread across the distant darkness, revealing the bugs and beasts given them chase. Now, trapping them close to their home. All around was the view of the swarm. That and the two ponies caught in the middle of it all.
Oh, dear sister.
Celestia shook her head with a sigh. She dared to close her eyes.
How did it ever come to this?
Memory flashed to 2 weeks in the past, where the heat of the jungle had been swept away by the cool breeze up on the mountain Canterlot was lodged up upon. It blew through the open window of the castle and into the long corridor, caressing the two sisters strolling down the red carpet.
I have gazed down these halls more than 1,000 times.
Princess Celestia began during her stroll, her muzzle swinging along, gazing at the place as though it were the last. There was some truth in that statement.
But none of those times matched the intensity I look at them now with. Suppose everything looks different, heavier, maybe even greater when you know it's the last time you'll ever see them again.
Luna's response to her sister's woe, like all good sisters, was to groan.
Not like we can't visit. Will we ever, though? Could turn out that way,
Luna replied.
Or it could turn out whatever way you choose to be.
She then rolled her neck, eye shooting, then surprised at one too many kinks popping out at once.
Weren't you the one that suggested retirement anyway? I thought both of us needed a break from seeing all of this to begin with.
Princess Celestia said.
I suppose you're right. Not seeing all of this would be rather nice for some time. That and going home together.
Luna rolled her eyes.
Yay! Home.
Why wasn't she more enthusiastic about that? Celestia fought the spark to question down the line of thought. They'd reached the towering doors where the meeting would take place. No guard suited on either side. Thank goodness for that.
Come.
Celestia threw a forehoof over Luna's neck. She rubbed the spot.
Put on your best smile for me. The quicker we're through here, the quicker we can leave from here. That is what you wish, right?
Luna sighed and looked around. Seconds passed. Then, with a huff, her lips pulled on either side, composing the most mechanical of smiles underneath the deadest of eyes. It suited her in a way.
That's my girl. Now, let's get on with this.
The doors pushed open with the gentlest pressure of the hoof. They spread apart to reveal the long wooden table situated in the middle of the area. Cabinets and drawers set around the curve of the circular room.
Princesses, you've made it!
Twilight had been sitting in the chair and peering into a book on the sound of their first step, her head shooting up, despite being immersed into the page. She stood and raced around at once, throwing herself up, swinging her forehooves over each of their necks.
It's so good to see you two. It's good to see you too,
Celestia replied, upon lowering her muzzle into the crook of the side on Twilight's neck, rubbing a hoof across her back. From her perch, however, she tossed a quick glance towards her sister.
And I'm sure Luna feels the same way.
Luna growled a silent groan, rolling her eyes once more, slowly, hesitantly patting Twilight's back.
You always evoke pleasant feelings inside of me, Twilight. 'Tis good to see you too.
While Celestia glared, Twilight didn't pick up on the robotic words spoken from a robot. Rather, she pulled away with a smile still pleasant, and then she turned back to the desk, circling around the same book from before.
Now that you're both here, I want to share a recent discovery of mine.
Now it was Luna's turn to glare up at Celestia, whispering.
We came all the way back here for that.
Celestia promptly swung her rump into her sister's, knocking her a foot to the left, causing her to scramble. With a satisfied grin, she strode forward, on seeing the familiarity of the book on the desk, and she froze.
Twilight?
Celestia then gently coughed.
What is that book you were reading? Exactly what I wanted to talk to you two about.
Twilight sauntered behind the book, flicking it closed with a hoof. Then, turning it around, she pushed it forward, the heavy sliding upon the wood scraping onto the ears.
You remember this book from when I was still a student? I went back to rediscover some passages when something caught me about them.
Celestia went pale. Paler than she usually is. That is. The book was banned many years ago. Personally, burned by both her hooves and horn alone. She made sure to rally up and call the copies, but maybe she had been one tick short after all.
Sister?
Luna whispered into her ear.
You are ill. Caught a sickness I'd rather not speak about.
Celestia whispered back.
From the book? Allergic to dust. You lie. Only for now.
Twilight cleared her throat with annoyed eyes set on the pair. Her head was tilted and her hoof was tapping against the wood. Both straightened up at once. How the student and the teacher had changed indeed.
If you two would pay attention now...
Luna looked as if she fought to suppress a salute of a hoof and the uttering of an aye.
Anyway?
Twilight peered back at the book with a smile.
I, at first, thought the book was fictional due to its narrative, but upon seeing second reading, the author states the events of being true. Locations and events and landmarks still held in our history are spoken about in the book. But then, it starts to reach further than the reaching of any map.
Celestia clenched an eye, though not out of any conscious effort.
Personally checked yourself? To ever date and location marked and traced.
Twilight sang the words, which scratched against Celestia's ear. It drooped while the rest of her body threatened to drop.
But if this book is true, if there really were events that occurred beyond the known lands...
Twilight's wings twitched open while she laid her hooves onto the desk.
Then surely it is up to us to go out and find these happenings out in the outer worlds, so they may be preserved in history.
Twilight was huffing with her body propped up onto the desk, her tongue nearly dulled out, excitement enticing the air. Her gaze flicked between the two, praying for similar enthusiasm, only for Luna to be arching an eyebrow and Celestia purely unreadable.
Of course, you two would be making history.
Luna perked up at that. Her name being recorded in textbooks for a positive reason was always bound to perk her ears.
Unknown resources and creates and games beyond reckoning. You'd be the famous recorders of them all.
Luna rubbed her chin.
Sounds like an adventure to be had.
She gazed up and over.
Wouldn't you agree, dear sister? Our adventure was supposed to be the one back home.
Celestia fought back underneath her breath, her long hair falling over her shoulders as her muzzle jutted down.
Those lands are more dangerous than you can know. So, do know of them.
Luna grinned.
I'm glad to hear it. The more danger is to be had, the better the experiences and the greater of a story that is to be told. No, no, no!
Celestia nearly cursed every word.
Do not encourage this! The book?
Twilight started up again as her voice drew both of their gazes.
was also written by the sole survivor of the last expedition ever sent there, by Celestia.
Twilight's eyes blinked. Apparently, speaking of the former princess in the highest form was still a hard habit to break.
By you, I mean. Plagues and creatures and that of the unknown tend to wipe out everyone you sent. About that. Which is why I plan on sending you two.
Was she serious? Twilight nearly clapped her hooves together in glee. Celestia loved her dearly, but sometimes she wanted to take those same hooves and stuff them into the mare's face.
Not only do you two possess great magical power and strength, but thanks to the alicorn healing factor, there won't be much to keep you down.
Luna blinked and took a step forward. Her face was interested, though head at an angle. Another horrible sign of serious consideration. Control your breathing, Celestia. Control your breathing.
So, you mean to send us into intense danger? You're the only two in the nation that could tackle such a project.
Twilight smiled upon settling a hoof atop the book. She pushed it towards the approaching Luna.
And something tells you're craving a little adventure during your retirement. Oh?
Luna paused before the table in the book.
And what makes you think that is so? Because I've been there during the off-seasons.
Twilight grinned.
Nothing worse than waking up knowing that's the best you're gonna feel all day.
Luna grinned.
My sister was right to leave you in charge after all.
She then placed a hoof on the book as well.
Able to give dangerous order to the royal sisters you once admired, knowing we need a kick to get us through our retirement, why... yes. I think you'll prove to be the kind of princess this world needed.
All muzzles turned over shoulders to Celestia. She rolled her eyes, leaning her head away, stepping forward all the same, lifting and dropping her hoof to the book. 3 hooves dedicated inwards to the contents of the book.
I suppose a little adventure would sweep some air back into the lungs,
Celestia said.
I merely worry for getting my heart rate up again.
Luna added.
And I'm just glad that there wasn't need to enact a law to get you two to go.
Twilight said to the earned glares of them both.
The one where a princess can order a subject to do something if battering the nation relies upon it. Like, fighting a dragon. Maybe I shouldn't have told you this wasn't a good choice to begin with.
Both mares glanced at each other, nodded, sparking the tips of their horns.
Whoops.
The royal sisters, now just sisters, sailed the next week. Nothing in their home needed to be changed, as the dishes and laundry and cleaning had been done in advance. Advanced of advanced. There wasn't much to do back home. Celestia had sat behind the wheel with a frown, resting her chin on a peg, unamused with the splendor of crashing waves rising and falling on the sides of the ship. Luna, however, stood at the mast, laughing and playing, striking a hoof to the great beyond more than twice, as if playing captain. Luna's joy was filly-like, unexpected in the mare, but delicious to experience. It was the only good thing about the trip, seeing Luna like a kid again. Celestia ended up smiling a few times, her chest pains to go and play and pretend to be a sailor as well. But the glum of the destination kept her fixed to her chair. There had been a third to join them. The oldest servant of the sisters chose to follow them even after the lowering of their crowns. He stood at the back of the ship, dressed in the black attire of a butler, holding a tray of 2 glasses, each filled. Many things were remarkable about the unremarkable butler. Always there, but never seen. Something was always being offered by him, and due to the first fact, rarely anything was ever taken. He kept still despite the harsher waves. Not a drop left the glasses on the tray he was set to hold. It's an amazing feat. If anybody actually cared. His name was Kibitz. It was barely known, because hardly anyone asked. Poor Kibitz.
Kibitz?
Or maybe his luck was changing after all.
Drinks, please.
The butler waited for a second, not out of disobedience, but rather due to his age. Seconds were required to process not every word, but rather, well, every syllable said to him. During one of Celestia's speeches, a full hour was needed before he had started clapping. He had been alone in the throne room, with the light off, clapping for 10 minutes. Yes, princess. He shambled over, limping, desperately needing a cane but having none. Somehow, the glasses kept perfectly balanced. The tip of her white wing wrapped around the glass's base, bringing it back to her muzzle for a sip. Is there anything else you require of me? Remember, small words, say them slowly.
The law, Twilight proposed.
Few seconds passed, and that should have been enough to lead him. Celestia prayed it was. Written by your own hoof during the before times, Princess. Kibitz had been ordered to stop calling her by that title, but the command either went ignored out of love and duty, or rather, because so much had to be undone in his mind, it would take years to actually be followed. None else would know of it except those knowing fully of your history, faded text included.
Certainly taught her to be inventive at any possible detail, didn't I?
No choice but to follow through on your mission. Kibitz pulled back a step. The passage of the Pineapples of Immortality caught my eyes. Celestia narrowed her brow, knowing him to be blind. Twilight has every right to pit you, even against the dragon if she desired, and could argue adequately for it. And it is now too late for you to rewrite the rules. So he was aware of the change of power. He called her princess out of love then. It wasn't much, though enough to bring a smile out of the former princess, all while, out on the deck, the Filly of America continued to play. The painting blue of the sky was buttery against the soft, intense glow of the sun. Everything perfect, despite marking to the island in the great beyond. Celestia was huffing even through the chase being long gone, the endless day becoming the endless nights, the persistent rains, warm and cold, somehow, simultaneously, now pelting at the drapes of leaves in the trees and the stone outside the cave. 4 hours of fighting and running, magically blasting, all of that had passed. Lifting above the jungle on the narrow lanes rising to the cliff of the mountain, the sister took inside to the cave, enough space to gather wood, setting a fire quickly thereafter, both of them lying on their stomach, their snouts inches from the flames. Once recovered, the two dispatched differently. Luna had happily towed trees and rocks and a few corpses of various animals during her treks beyond the cave. For a mare that never sung in the shower, she whistled to her own echo, playing a show all for and to herself. And she crafted armor and gear, swords and spears, needing something like this to drive her will, give her purpose, a journey she longed to be on again. So long as she could fight and gather and create and then go back stronger, she'd be the happiest mare to have ever lived. Celestia was busy with her snout now stuffed into a map. The merry tunes of her sister annoyed her terribly, and she felt terrible for that fact. But the heat, the rain, the scratches and itches across her frame simply cast herself in a foul mood.
I swear, there is no point in reading this map to begin with.
It wasn't like Celestia had to throw a scroll against the ground, but sometimes in life Celestia needed to throw a scroll against the ground.
Discord could have composed this whole island, for all we know. Our first target, Nitro Rice, isn't anywhere close to where the book said he would be.
Luna stopped sewing the pieces of leather in her hose together.
Doesn't sound all that bad to me. More time around the island means more monsters to put down. If we take on something a bit stronger, I can make even better gear out of it.
Celestia rolled her eyes.
There's a chance we could be exploring this island for all eternity. Haven't you noticed something strange whenever we walked around? The jungle is here for a reason. Every step we take, the island shifts itself around us. Hard to tell when you can't see beyond the area you're stuck in. Another trouble for us to overcome,
Luna responded.
Don't you miss this? Our land used to be like this, a long time ago.
She smiled as if swept into a memory.
But I still remember it fondly. You and I paved the land so ponies could live peacefully.
Celestia was forced to laugh as well, but in the second chuckle, her eyes lowered.
Suppose those days of cleansing the lands were... they were enjoyable, in a strange way. Better way of spending our retirement together. I suppose you're right on that.
Celestia stood up and came next to her sister, assisting in making the sleeve of leather.
Why don't you worry about weapons and I'll handle armor. Exactly how we did it back then.
Both sisters then smiled as they returned to work, happy to be together with a bounded purpose. Truly the best essence one could hope to experience in life. It would take many months of many tries before they conquered this island. But this sort of retirement suited them better anyway. Before ending off this very adventurous fanfic, I want to give a big special thank you to my kind donators. Yoshi Super Saiyan 2, Peter Coulthard, Nicholas Springthorpe, Dospo, David D. Sanchez, Dwight Cornel, Gagi, Starlight Glimmer, Trey, Pokekiller Zach, Soul Dragon, Dak Britton, and Joe Piercy. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the very next one.